Hello and welcome back to the channel. Tonight, let everything else fall away. Turn the lights down low, pull the blanket a little higher, and let your breathing settle into something slow and even. Tonight we travel further back in time than almost any other story we have told on this channel. Back before the pyramids of Egypt were built, back before Stonehenge was raised, back to a quiet desert valley on the coast of South America, where a people we know almost nothing about built the oldest known city in the entire Western Hemisphere. And they built it, as far as we can tell, without a single sword, without a single fortress wall, without a single trace of war. If these long, slow journeys into forgotten history bring you comfort, please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so new stories can find you in the quiet hours when you need them. And now, let the modern world fade. Let's travel back nearly 5,000 years to the Valley of Caral. To understand why Caral is such a remarkable place to begin our story, we first need to sit with a simple fact about its setting. This ancient city rises in one of the driest deserts on Earth. The coast of Peru is shaped by a strange and powerful combination of geography. To the east rise the towering Andes Mountains, one of the greatest mountain ranges on the planet. To the west lies the Pacific Ocean, and along this particular stretch of coastline, a cold ocean current moves northward from the far south, chilling the air above it. This cold current, combined with the rain-blocking wall of the Andes, creates one of the most arid coastal deserts anywhere in the world, a place where, in many areas, rain might fall only once every several years, and sometimes not at all, for a decade or more. And yet, cutting through this parched landscape, a handful of rivers flow down from the distant Andean peaks, carrying meltwater and rain gathered high in the mountains, down through steep canyons and out across the flat coastal desert toward the sea. These rivers create narrow green ribbons of fertile land, threading through an otherwise lifeless expanse of sand and rock. Valleys where, with careful irrigation, crops can grow in astonishing abundance despite the surrounding desert. The valley we are concerned with tonight is called the Soup Valley, carved by the Soup River as it winds down from the western slopes of the Andes toward the Pacific coast, roughly in the area of modern-day Peru, a little to the north of the capital city of Lima. It is a modest valley, quiet even today, home to small farming towns and dusty roads. And yet, roughly 5,000 years ago, this unassuming stretch of desert became host to one of the most significant and least understood civilizations in all of human history. Picture the valley as it might have looked in that ancient time, pale desert hills rising on either side, bare and rippled by wind, offering almost no vegetation at all beyond the immediate reach of the river. And then, following the thin green line of the Super River itself, a startling burst of life. Reeds and rushes along the water's edge, fields of cotton and squash and beans stretching in careful rows, fruit trees planted with evident care, and rising above this narrow band of cultivated green, structures of a scale and sophistication that, when modern archaeologists finally understood their true age, would force historians to rewrite entire chapters of how civilization is believed to have begun in the Americas. This was Caral, not merely a village, not merely a town, but by most modern definitions a true city, complete with monumental architecture, planned public spaces, specialized labor, and long-distance trade connections. And remarkably, it flourished during roughly the same broad era, or in some respects even earlier, than the first great pyramids were being raised along the Nile in Egypt. Let this quiet, startling image rest with you for a moment. A hidden green valley cut into one of the driest deserts on the planet, and within it, thousands of years before most of what we consider ancient history, a city rising in careful, deliberate stone. Before we walk through the city itself, it is worth understanding a strange and important part of Caral's story. For most of the 20th century, the modern world simply did not know what it was looking at. Local farmers and residents of the Soup Valley had long known of the great earthen mounds rising from the desert floor near their fields. Enormous, flat-topped pyramidal structures built from stone and rubble, their surfaces long since eroded and softened by wind and time into shapes that to the untrained eye could easily be mistaken for natural hills. For generations, these mounds were simply part of the landscape, unremarkable features of a valley that had been continuously inhabited in one form or another for thousands of years. When early 20th century archaeologists did take note of the site, many assumed, quite reasonably given the assumptions of the time, that these structures must belong to a much later period, perhaps a few hundred years before the arrival of Spanish conquerors, built by a culture connected to the later, better-known civilizations of the Andes, such as the Chavin, or even the Inca themselves. There seemed no reason, according to the archaeological understanding of that era, to imagine that anything so large and organized could belong to a far more ancient and mysterious past. It was not until the final years of the 20th century, particularly through the patient, careful work of a Peruvian archaeologist named Ruth Shady Solis, that the true age of Caral finally came into focus. Beginning her excavations in earnest in the 1990s, Shady Solis and her team painstakingly uncovered evidence, reed and cotton fiber, preserved within the very construction fill of the pyramidal mounds themselves, that could be tested using radiocarbon dating, a scientific method capable of determining with remarkable precision roughly how long ago organic material had stopped absorbing carbon from the living world. The results, when they came back, were nothing short of stunning. The materials dated not to a few hundred years before European contact, as many had assumed, but to roughly 2600 BCE, and in some cases earlier still, placing the rise of Caral's monumental architecture in the same broad era as the construction of Egypt's Great Pyramids, and considerably earlier than the great civilizations of Mesoamerica that would later capture so much public imagination, such as the Maya or the Olmec. This discovery reshaped almost overnight the entire timeline of civilization in the Americas. Where scholars had once assumed that complex monumental society in this hemisphere developed relatively late, largely in isolation from and centuries behind the great early civilizations of the Old World, Caral demonstrated that a fully developed monumental urban society had in fact arisen independently along the Peruvian coast at a remarkably early date, a civilization that owed nothing to outside influence, having developed its cities, its architecture, and its complex society entirely on its own terms, born from the particular resources and challenges of this narrow desert valley. It is a humbling thought and one worth sitting with quietly for a moment. An entire ancient civilization, its monuments standing in plain view for centuries, simply waiting patiently in the desert silence for the world to finally understand what it was looking at. Let us walk now through Caral as it might have appeared at the height of its influence, sometime around 2600 to 2000 BCE, during the centuries when its influence over the surrounding valley, and quite possibly over a much wider network of related settlements, was at its strongest. Approaching the city from the surrounding desert, a traveler in this ancient era would first notice how the pale, sun-bleached landscape gradually gave way to cultivated fields, carefully tended plots of cotton, its white bolls swaying gently in the desert wind, alongside squash, beans, and various fruit trees, all sustained by an irrigation system channeling water from the nearby Soup River across the otherwise parched terrain. And then, rising above this cultivated green, the city itself would come into view, a cluster of massive stepped pyramidal platforms built up in layers over generations, their surfaces originally faced with fitted stone and likely finished with colored plaster, though centuries of desert wind have long since worn much of this original surface away. The largest of these structures, now known to archaeologists as the Pyramide Maya or Great Pyramid, rises in stepped terraces to a height of roughly 20 meters, its base covering an area larger than several modern city blocks combined. An extraordinary undertaking for a civilization working entirely without metal tools, without wheeled vehicles, and, as far as the archaeological evidence suggests, without any large domesticated animals capable of hauling heavy loads. At the summit of these great platform mounds, archaeologists have found the remains of enclosed rooms and altar-like structures, along with evidence of ceremonial fires and offerings, suggesting that these towering structures served not as tombs in the manner of Egypt's pyramids, but as elevated ceremonial and religious spaces, places where priests or leaders could perform rituals lifted above the ordinary life of the city below, closer perhaps to the sky and the mountains that so thoroughly shaped the spiritual world of the ancient Andean peoples. Surrounding these great pyramidal structures, the city of Caral contained a variety of other significant buildings, smaller platform mounds, likely serving separate but related communities or purposes within the settlement. Large, sunken circular plazas carefully excavated into the earth in a perfectly circular shape, their stepped stone walls forming what many archaeologists believe were spaces for public gathering, ceremony, and perhaps community decision-making, capable of holding what may have been the majority of the city's population within their circular embrace. And residential compounds ranging from more modest dwellings to considerably grander residences, likely reflecting differences in status and role within Caral's evidently structured, though not overtly militarized, society. It is worth pausing here on a detail archaeologists have found particularly striking. Unlike so many ancient cities elsewhere in the world, Caral shows no clear evidence of defensive walls, no fortifications, no stockpiles of weapons designed for warfare, and remarkably little evidence in its skeletal remains of violent injury consistent with organized conflict. This is an extraordinarily rare pattern among early complex societies, most of which developed alongside at least some clear evidence of warfare, territorial defense, or violent conquest. Whatever forces held Caral's society together across its many centuries of prosperity, they appear to have relied far more heavily on shared ceremony, trade, and perhaps religious or cosmological authority than on military coercion or defense against external threats. Let this image settle gently in your mind: a desert valley, green only along its narrow river's edge, and rising from that green ribbon, a cluster of great stepped platforms and sunken circular courts, built not behind walls of defense, but seemingly in open, confident relationship with the surrounding land and sky. One of the most curious and distinctive aspects of Caral's material culture, something that continues to intrigue archaeologists today, is a conspicuous absence. For much of its long history, Caral society appears to have functioned without producing significant quantities of pottery. This is a remarkable detail because in most parts of the ancient world, the appearance of settled, complex society is very closely linked with the development of ceramic technology. Pottery vessels for cooking, storage, and ceremonial use are, in most archaeological contexts, one of the most abundant and useful tools available for understanding an ancient culture's daily life, trade connections, and artistic style. Yet in Caral, particularly during its earliest and most monumentally impressive centuries, pottery is strikingly rare or entirely absent from the archaeological record. How then did the people of Caral manage without it? The answer lies in a remarkable degree of resourcefulness, most visibly reflected in their sophisticated use of a plant that held extraordinary importance throughout this civilization: the humble gourd. Gourds, grown carefully along the irrigated fields of the Soup Valley, were dried, hollowed, and shaped into an enormous range of practical containers. Bowls, bottles, ladles, and storage vessels of every size, capable of holding water, seeds, and prepared foods with remarkable durability once properly dried and treated. In many respects, gourds appear to have served the functional role that ceramic pottery served in other ancient societies, allowing Caral's people to store, transport, and prepare food and water without ever needing to develop the specific technology of fired clay vessels. Alongside gourds, the people of Caral relied heavily on another material of tremendous importance to their entire way of life: cotton, grown in abundance along the valley's irrigated fields. Cotton fiber, twisted into cord and rope and woven into cloth, served an almost bewildering range of purposes throughout Caral society, some of which we will explore more closely in the chapters ahead. It was used for clothing, for fishing nets, for construction materials, and, in one particularly ingenious application, for a specific type of woven bag that played a critical, almost invisible role in the very construction of Caral's towering pyramids. This detail, a great and enduring civilization organizing itself without significant pottery, relying instead on gourds and cotton fiber worked with extraordinary skill, offers us an early and important lesson about Caral. This was a civilization defined not by the particular technologies we might expect from advanced ancient societies elsewhere in the world, but by its own distinctive, locally rooted solutions to the challenges of its unique desert environment. Let us turn now to one of the most ingenious engineering solutions discovered anywhere in the ancient world, a technique that allowed the people of Caral to raise their towering pyramidal platforms in a landscape prone to the periodic, violent shaking of earthquakes. A simple woven bag known today as the shikra. The coast of Peru lies along one of the most seismically active regions on the planet, part of the Great Pacific Tectonic Boundary, sometimes called the Ring of Fire. Earthquakes here are not a rare and occasional disaster, but a recurring feature of life, striking with enough force over the centuries to topple poorly constructed buildings and shift the very ground beneath a city's foundations. The builders of Caral, working across many generations, appear to have developed a remarkably effective solution to this challenge. Rather than filling their great pyramidal platforms with loose rubble, which could shift dangerously and even liquefy under the stress of seismic shaking, they instead filled the interior of their monuments with thousands upon thousands of small stones, each one carefully bundled inside a woven bag made from cotton or reed fiber, the shikra bag. These bags, packed tightly with fist-sized stones and stacked together like a kind of ancient sandbag construction, created a flexible, semi-rigid interior structure within the pyramid, one capable of absorbing and dispersing the shock of seismic movement far more effectively than a solid mass of loose rubble ever could. Modern engineers, studying this ancient technique, have noted with evident admiration that the flexible, basket-like quality of thousands of interlocking shikra bags likely provided genuine, measurable resistance against earthquake damage. An ingenious solution developed entirely through observation, experience, and patient trial across generations of builders, without any of the formal mathematical or engineering theory that we might associate with true architectural science. Picture, if you will, the quiet, patient labor this technique required. Workers gathering stones from the surrounding riverbed and hillsides, other workers weaving bags from cotton and reed fiber, still others carefully filling each bag and passing it hand to hand up the growing slope of the pyramid, layer after layer, across months and years of steady communal effort. There is something deeply moving in this picture, not the forced labor of enslaved masses under the whip, as popular imagination sometimes assumes of ancient monument building, but rather, at least as far as the archaeological evidence suggests for Caral, a form of coordinated cooperative labor, quite possibly tied to seasonal agricultural cycles, religious festival, and communal obligation rather than to conquest or coercion. Each pyramid at Caral, in fact, was often built up not in a single continuous construction effort, but through repeated cycles of renovation and expansion across generations. An older structure would periodically be filled in and built over with a fresh, larger layer, the shikra bags of the earlier phase now serving as buried, hidden infrastructure supporting the next generation's grander ambitions. In this way, each great pyramid at Caral is, in a very real sense, a kind of layered monument to time itself, each hidden inner layer representing decades or centuries of continuous use, renewal, and rebuilding by generations who likely never knew a version of their city without these sacred, ever-growing platforms rising at its heart. Among the most visually striking and symbolically rich structures found throughout Caral and its related settlements are the sunken circular plazas, carefully excavated circular courtyards set below the surrounding ground level, their curved walls often built up with fitted stone in neat, concentric rings. These circular sunken plazas appear again and again throughout the Soup Valley and neighboring valleys along this stretch of the Peruvian coast, always positioned near or adjacent to the great pyramidal mounds, suggesting a close and intentional relationship between the two types of structure. The raised platform reaching toward the sky and the sunken circle reaching symbolically downward into the earth. Archaeologists studying these plazas believe they served as important gathering spaces, likely used for ceremonial performances, religious ritual, and possibly significant community decisions or celebrations, capable in some cases of holding a substantial portion of the surrounding population within their circular embrace. Some plazas show evidence of small interior structures or seating arrangements, suggesting a more formal, perhaps hierarchical use, with certain individuals, priests, elders, or leaders, positioned centrally or elevated relative to a surrounding gathered crowd. It is worth imagining, for a moment, the atmosphere of such a gathering. Picture the sun beginning to lower over the desert hills, its long light catching the pale stone walls of the sunken circular plaza. Perhaps musicians gather at its center, playing instruments crafted from bone or shell. Archaeologists have discovered flutes made from the wing bones of pelicans and condors at Caral, a detail we will return to shortly. Perhaps incense or the smoke of ceremonial fires drifts upward from the plaza's floor, curling toward the darkening sky above. And around the circular walls, the gathered people of Caral, farmers, weavers, fishermen, elders, children, settle in to watch, to listen, to participate in whatever sacred rhythm structured their communal life. These circular plazas, echoing in form the shape of a rising sun, or perhaps a coiled shell, or the circular horizon of the desert itself, speak to a civilization deeply attuned to cosmological symbolism, a people who built not merely for practical shelter or storage, but who shaped the very ground beneath their feet into forms carrying deep and lasting spiritual meaning. Among the most evocative and unexpectedly moving discoveries made at Caral is a collection of ancient musical instruments, delicate flutes crafted with evident skill from the hollow wing bones of large birds, particularly pelicans and condors, some of them decorated with carved images of birds and monkeys along their surface. Dozens of these flutes have been recovered from the site, many of them found together in what appears to have been a single, deliberate deposit, perhaps an offering or a ceremonial cache, buried together as part of some ritual whose precise meaning is now lost to us, though its careful, intentional nature is unmistakable. Alongside these flutes, archaeologists have also discovered cornets, trumpet-like instruments crafted from the bones and horns of deer, and camelids such as llamas, capable of producing deep, resonant sounds, quite different from the higher, more delicate tones of the bone flutes. Together, these instruments suggest a rich and sophisticated musical tradition at the very heart of Caral's ceremonial life, one capable of producing a genuine range of melody, rhythm, and tonal depth. It is a rare and precious thing in the study of ancient civilizations to be able to imagine with any real confidence the actual sound of a vanished culture. Most of what survives from the deep past is silent stone, worked metal, or preserved textile. Objects we can see and touch, but that offer no direct echo of the living voice or living music that once animated them. And yet here, in this quiet desert valley, we have actual instruments capable, in the hands of a modern musician, of producing something close to the very tones that once rose from Caral's ceremonial plazas nearly 5,000 years ago. Picture the scene once more, dusk, settling over the sunken circular plaza, the gathered community quiet with anticipation, and then, rising softly into the cooling desert air, the high, breathy tone of a bone flute, joined perhaps by the deeper pulse of a cornet's resonant call, the music rising and falling across the ancient stone walls, carrying whatever prayer, story, or celebration the moment demanded, out into the vast, silent desert beyond the city's edge. Let us step back now from ceremony and monument and rest instead in the quieter, more practical rhythms of daily life that sustained Caral across its many centuries of prosperity. For a city of this scale and ambition could not exist on ritual and music alone. It required food and a great deal of careful, coordinated agricultural labor to produce it. The people of Caral practiced what is often called irrigation agriculture, channeling water from the Super River through a network of canals to nourish fields that would otherwise have remained bare, sun-scorched desert. This required not only the physical labor of digging and maintaining canals, but a considerable degree of communal cooperation and organization. Decisions about how water should be shared and distributed across the valley's various fields and communities, decisions that likely required some form of centralized planning or authority, further reinforcing the picture of Caral as a genuinely organized, hierarchical, though apparently non-militarized society. The fields themselves produced an impressive variety of crops. Squash was grown widely, its flesh providing food, and its dried shells offering yet another useful material for containers and tools. Beans, rich in protein, supplemented a diet that in this early period of Andean agricultural history had not yet come to rely on maize as heavily as later Andean civilizations would. Guava and other fruit trees provided sweetness and variety. And perhaps most significantly of all, cotton was cultivated on a substantial scale, not primarily as a food crop, but as an essential material resource whose importance to Caral's economy and daily life can hardly be overstated. This emphasis on cotton points us toward one of the most fascinating aspects of Caral's economic life, its deep, symbiotic relationship with the sea. Roughly 20 kilometers from Caral itself, along the Pacific coastline, where the Super River finally meets the ocean, archaeologists have identified evidence of fishing communities closely connected to and quite possibly economically dependent upon the inland city of Caral and its surrounding valley. The waters off the coast of Peru are extraordinarily rich in marine life, nourished by the same cold ocean current that creates the region's arid desert climate, a phenomenon in which cold, nutrient-rich water rising from the ocean depths supports enormous populations of fish and other sea creatures, making this stretch of coastline one of the most productive fishing grounds anywhere in the world, in both ancient times and today. Coastal communities near Caral appear to have specialized heavily in fishing, using nets crafted from the very cotton cultivated in the inland valley fields. And it is here that we find one of the most elegant examples of economic interdependence, in the entire ancient world. Inland farmers at Caral grew cotton, which coastal fishing communities wove into nets. Those nets allowed the coastal communities to harvest enormous quantities of fish and other seafood from the rich Pacific waters. And this abundant catch was, in turn, traded back up the valley to Caral and its associated inland communities, providing a vital source of protein to supplement the otherwise plant-based agricultural diet of the inland farming population. This relationship, cotton for fish, agricultural produce for marine protein, appears to have formed one of the central economic engines sustaining not just Caral itself, but an entire interconnected network of related settlements scattered across the Soup Valley and neighboring valleys along this stretch of coast, a network some archaeologists now refer to as the Norte Chico civilization, of which Caral was almost certainly the largest, most influential, and most monumentally developed center. It is worth pausing to appreciate the quiet elegance of this arrangement. Two very different environments, the inland irrigated desert valley and the rich coastal waters, bound together not by conquest or coercion, but by mutual need and complementary resource, each community offering something the other could not easily produce for itself, weaving together, quite literally, through cotton fiber, an economic and social fabric that sustained a thriving, apparently peaceful civilization across many centuries. Caral's economic reach did not end at the boundary between coastal fishing village and inland farming valley. Archaeological evidence suggests that Caral participated in trade networks extending considerably further afield, reaching into the Andean highlands and quite possibly into the tropical forests beyond the eastern slopes of the mountains. Among the most telling pieces of evidence for this long-distance trade is the discovery at Caral of items that could only have originated from environments far removed from the immediate desert valley, including remains suggesting contact with communities in the Andean highlands who may have supplied Caral with products such as wool from camelid animals like llamas and alpacas, animals that could not be raised in the desert lowlands but thrived in the cooler highland pastures. Some evidence even points toward more distant connections, potentially reaching toward the Amazonian lowlands on the far eastern side of the Andes, an extraordinary distance to traverse in an era long before any wheeled transport or large draft animals were available in the Americas. This suggests a civilization considerably more interconnected with its wider environment than the isolated, self-contained image we might initially imagine for such an ancient desert settlement. Caral, it seems, sat at the center of a genuine web of exchange, drawing resources and quite possibly ideas and cultural influences from a remarkably wide geographic range, all carried on foot or perhaps by simple raft along coastal waters across distances that would challenge even determined modern travelers equipped with far superior technology. Let this detail settle for a moment. A city in a hidden desert valley, its farmers growing cotton and squash, its fishermen harvesting the rich Pacific waters, and threading through both of these immediate local activities, longer, quieter lines of exchange reaching toward distant mountain pastures, and perhaps even the edge of the Amazon rainforest itself. A civilization far more connected to the wider world than its remote, silent ruins might, at first glance, suggest. We return now to perhaps the single most remarkable and thought-provoking aspect of Caral's entire story: the strikingly consistent absence of evidence for warfare throughout its long history. Across the extensive excavations conducted at Caral and its related settlements, archaeologists have found no defensive walls, no fortified structures, no significant caches of specialized weaponry designed for warfare rather than hunting, and, critically, very little evidence among the skeletal remains recovered from the site of the kind of traumatic injury patterns typically associated with organized violent conflict. No clusters of blunt force trauma, no embedded projectile points, none of the grim physical evidence that so often accompanies the archaeology of early complex societies elsewhere in the ancient world. This stands in remarkable contrast to many other early civilizations, where the rise of urban complexity so often appears intertwined with the rise of organized warfare. Walled cities, defending against rival powers, standing armies, and the iconography of conquest carved prominently into royal monuments. Caral offers us something quite different, a genuinely large, complex, hierarchically organized society, one capable of mobilizing enormous communal labor for monumental construction projects, evidently developing some form of centralized leadership or priestly authority, and yet doing so, as far as the surviving evidence allows us to determine, without recourse to warfare, weaponry, or the militarized defense of its cities. Archaeologists and historians have proposed various explanations for this remarkable pattern. Some point to Caral's relatively isolated position within its narrow desert valley, protected somewhat naturally by the surrounding arid terrain from easy incursion by rival groups. Others suggest that the strong economic interdependence we explored earlier, the vital exchange of cotton for fish, binding together inland and coastal communities, may have created powerful incentives for cooperation rather than conflict, since no single community could easily thrive by conquering or destroying the very trading partners upon whom its own prosperity depended. Still others point to the possibility that religious or ceremonial authority expressed through the shared construction and use of the great pyramidal platforms and circular plazas may have provided an alternative, non-violent mechanism for organizing labor, resolving disputes, and maintaining social order across the valley's various communities. Whatever the precise combination of causes, the picture that emerges from Caral is a genuinely rare and precious one in the broader history of early human civilization, proof that large-scale, complex, monumentally ambitious society does not, as is sometimes assumed, require warfare and conquest as its necessary foundation. It is a quiet, humbling lesson carried across nearly 5,000 years by a desert valley that built pyramids not as monuments to victory over rival peoples, but, as far as we can tell, as expressions of shared cosmology, communal labor, and collective religious devotion. One final, particularly intriguing discovery from Caral deserves careful attention here, for it touches on a mystery that continues to fascinate historians studying the entire arc of Andean civilization. The question of how complex information was recorded and transmitted in a society that, as far as we currently know, never developed a conventional writing system in the manner of ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, or China. Among the artifacts recovered at Caral, archaeologists have identified what appears to be an extremely early example of a quipu, a device consisting of knotted cords, typically made from cotton or wool fiber, in which the positioning, color, and type of knot along each cord could encode numerical or categorical information. Quipus are far better known from their later, highly sophisticated use by the Inca Empire many centuries after Caral's time, where they served as essential tools for record-keeping across the vast administrative bureaucracy of that later empire, tracking census information, tribute payments, and, some scholars believe, potentially even narrative or historical information encoded in ways not yet fully understood by modern researchers. The discovery of what may be a quipu at Caral, dating back nearly 5,000 years, suggests that this remarkable recording system, so closely associated with the much later Inca civilization, may in fact have roots extending back to the very earliest complex society to arise in the Andean region altogether. A continuous thread of information technology, refined and developed across thousands of years, connecting the builders of Caral's silent pyramids to the administrators of the vast Inca Empire that would eventually stretch across much of the western length of South America. It is a remarkable thought to sit with, while the builders of the Great Pyramids in Egypt, working in roughly this same broad era, developed hieroglyphic writing to record their world, and while the earliest cities of Mesopotamia developed cuneiform script pressed into clay tablets. The people of this quiet Peruvian desert valley appear to have developed an entirely different solution to the fundamental human need to record, remember, and transmit information. Not through marks pressed into a durable surface, but through careful, deliberate knots tied into cord, a system perhaps less visible to the untrained modern eye, but no less sophisticated in the information it was capable of encoding. As with every great civilization we have explored together on this channel, Caral's long centuries of prosperity eventually, gradually, came to their end. The precise causes of Caral's decline remain, like so much of this civilization's story, only partially understood, pieced together from careful environmental and archaeological research, rather than any surviving written record explaining events in the culture's own words. Several factors appear to have contributed to this slow transformation, unfolding across generations rather than through any single, sudden catastrophe. Climate appears to have played a significant role. Some researchers, studying sediment cores and other environmental evidence from the region, have proposed that a series of significant seismic events combined with the periodic and sometimes severe effects of the climate phenomenon known today as El Niño, in which unusually warm ocean conditions can bring catastrophic flooding to normally arid coastal regions, disrupting both farming and fishing simultaneously, may have placed increasing strain on the delicate balance of inland agriculture and coastal fishing that had sustained Caral's economy for so many centuries. There is also evidence to suggest gradual environmental degradation connected to human activity itself. Some researchers point to signs of increasing sand dune encroachment onto agricultural land in the valleys of this region during the centuries following Caral's peak, possibly linked to disruptions in the vegetation that had previously stabilized the desert landscape, whether through natural climate shifts or through the cumulative pressures of centuries of human land use. Whatever the precise combination of causes, the archaeological evidence suggests that by around 1800 BCE, roughly 8 centuries after Caral first rose to prominence, the Great Pyramids at the heart of the city were gradually abandoned, their ceremonial functions apparently ceasing, and the focus of civilization along this stretch of the Peruvian coast gradually shifted toward other emerging centers, part of the broader, slow evolution of Andean civilization that would, across the following thousands of years, eventually give rise to the later, better-known cultures of Peru, the Chavin, the Moche, the Nazca, the Wari, and eventually, centuries after all of these, the vast and famous Inca Empire itself. Caral did not fall to conquest as far as we can determine. There is no evidence of the city being burned, sacked, or violently destroyed. Instead, it appears to have simply, slowly, been set aside, its great platforms left to the patient work of desert wind and time, its ceremonial fires extinguished, its bone flutes silenced, its cotton fields eventually reclaimed by the surrounding sand, until, across the following 4,000 years, the very memory of what this quiet valley had once contained faded entirely from human awareness, its towering pyramids gradually softened by erosion into the gentle, anonymous hills that later generations of farmers would walk past, unknowing, for century after century after century. Today, thanks to the careful, patient work of archaeologists over the past several decades, Caral has been formally recognized as one of humanity's most significant early urban centers, and in 2009, the site was inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, acknowledging its extraordinary importance as the oldest known urban settlement in the entire Western Hemisphere. Visitors to the site today walk among the still-standing remains of the Great Pyramid and its neighboring structures, the stepped terraces now clearly visible after careful excavation and conservation work, the sunken circular plazas once again open to the sky after millennia buried beneath desert sand. Standing at the summit of the Great Pyramid, looking out across the narrow green ribbon of the Super Valley toward the pale, empty desert hills beyond, a visitor today can experience something remarkably close to the view that would have greeted a priest or leader of ancient Caral, standing in this same elevated place nearly 5,000 years ago, surveying fields of cotton and squash stretching along the riverbank, and beyond them the vast silent desert that has, in its own patient way, protected and preserved this remarkable city for so many thousands of years. The bone flutes recovered from Caral's ceremonial deposits are now preserved and studied in museums, their delicate carved surfaces offering us a rare, tangible connection to the actual music that once rose from this valley's sacred plazas. The quipu fragments discovered at the site continue to be studied by researchers, hoping to better understand the deep roots of this remarkable recording system, tracing its development across thousands of years of Andean history. And the very absence of weapons, fortifications, and evidence of warfare throughout Caral's long history continues to offer historians and archaeologists a valuable, thought-provoking counterexample to assumptions about the necessary relationship between early urban complexity and organized violence. Perhaps most remarkably of all, ongoing research in the Soup Valley and neighboring valleys continues to reveal further related settlements, part of the broader Norte Chico civilization, of which Caral was the largest and most influential center, suggesting that this ancient desert valley was once home not merely to a single isolated city, but to an entire interconnected regional civilization, one whose full extent and complexity researchers are still even now in the process of carefully uncovering and understanding. As we come to the end of this long, slow journey, let your mind rest for a moment on the image of that hidden desert valley, its narrow green ribbon of cultivated land threading through some of the driest terrain on Earth. Let yourself picture the Great Pyramid rising in careful stepped terraces above fields of white cotton and dark green squash, its interior filled, layer upon patient layer, with thousands of small woven bags of stone, each one placed by careful human hands across generations, absorbing and dispersing the periodic shaking of this restless, seismic coastline. Let yourself picture the sunken circular plaza at dusk, the gathered community settling into its curved stone embrace and rising softly into the cooling desert air, the high, breathy call of a bone flute, carrying whatever prayer or celebration the moment required out across the silent hills beyond the city's edge. Let yourself picture the quiet, patient exchange binding this civilization together. Cotton, grown in inland fields, woven into nets by coastal hands, cast into rich Pacific waters, and the resulting catch carried back up the valley to feed the very farmers whose cotton had made it possible. A whole civilization woven together not by conquest, but by mutual need and careful cooperation. And let yourself picture, finally, the long, patient silence that followed, nearly 4,000 years in which this remarkable city rested, forgotten, beneath the soft erosion of desert wind, its true age and significance unknown even to those who lived and farmed in its very shadow, until careful, modern hands finally uncovered, layer by careful layer, the full and startling truth of what this quiet valley had always contained. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight, drifting through the fields and plazas of ancient Caral. If you enjoyed this journey, please consider subscribing to the channel so that more stories like this one can find their way to you in the quiet hours when you need them most. Share this with anyone who might enjoy a slow, calm journey into forgotten history. Rest now. Let the desert wind settle back over the silent pyramids. Let the bone flutes fade into memory. Let the ancient valley drift gently beyond the edge of sleep. Sleep well, and good night.